What I want to talk about now are spices. Now, spices are, in my opinion, one of the most underused and undervalued things in our store cupboards. I'm sure that most of us have got the odd few jars of spices stuck in the store cupboard at the very back that need a good dusting off and possibly went out of date in 2002. So what I want everyone to do is get out your spices, check the use by date. If they're out of date, get rid of them, chuck them and start afresh, because spices are such a valuable way of adding flavour and adding depth to dishes without needing extra salt or extra sugar. Now, a lot of people are a bit scared of spice. They don't know how to use them. They've maybe had horrific experiences where, like me, you've completely overdone the amount of cayenne pepper or turmeric in a dish and it's just tasted revolting and it's put you off using spices. So I'm here to say, don't fear, they're actually not that difficult to use. You just need to follow 3 basic guidelines, if you like. And these are guidelines really that I've adopted myself, so I hope you find them useful. Now, the first one is the golden rule of trying not to overpower dishes. Some spices are very subtle and some are very strong. Now, if you want to pick a flavour, for example, if you're using lots of cumin, that should be the main spice. So just bear that in mind and don't try to add loads of cayenne pepper, loads of cumin, because you'll end up overpowering everything. So just less is more, and remember, you can always add, but you can never take away. So number 1, don't overpower. Pick one main spice and then add to it with tiny amounts of other spices if you like. The second one is actually when to add spices to cooking. Now, if you're making proper curries, you'll often see people adding them in at the beginning with the fat, and this really allows the aromas to develop and to cook the spices. Now, the difference between herbs and spices is that herbs, fresh herbs anyway, need to be added at the end to preserve the colour and the fresh taste. But spices are better added right at the beginning because this really allows the flavours chance to develop and really permeate through the whole dish. So number 2, add them towards the start of cooking to get the most of the flavour. 3 is the storage of spices. Now, a lot of people will have spices right next to their cooker because that's quite a convenient place to have it, but actually the best place to store spices is somewhere a little bit away from the cooker, somewhere cool and somewhere dark, and this really just keeps the spices in top condition. And those are the 3 main things really. Just being aware not to overpower, so not to add too many at one time, looking at when to add it, so adding it towards the beginning, and 3, storing them correctly. So what I want to do now is to look at some of my favourite spices and ways that you can use them in foods that are very, very easy. So the first one we're going to look at is cinnamon. Now, I love cinnamon. The smell of it just reminds me of Christmas, and it's a pretty versatile spice. Tends to be used more in sweet things than savoury things, but actually if it's added in small amounts to beef stews or lamb stews, it can really add a lovely depth of flavour. The other thing that cinnamon's great for is for sprinkling on top of porridge or sprinkling on top of warm milk or on top of things like poached pears or hot winter fruit salads. I think of it as a very winter, kind of a warming spice. The second one I want to go through is paprika, which is, I think, this lovely rusty coloured spice. Now, there are loads of different types of paprika. You can get smoky paprika, you can get mild, hot, sweet. They all taste slightly different, obviously, but they're all very versatile. Lots of people use paprika just as a sprinkle because they all have that wonderful rusty colour in common, so they look very pretty sprinkled on things like hummus. They're great for adding to sauces and even to dressings, and to salads, sprinkled over salads or in salads. The third spice I want to go through is cumin, which is this one, which smells really, really kind of quite a pungent, quite a strong smell. I mean, I actually really love the smell of cumin, but a lot of people find it a bit overpowering. And that's quite a good indication that, you know, a small amount of cumin goes a long way because it is quite a powerful, very flavourful spice. Cumin is fantastic in meats. So it's great for cooking meats and stews with. It's lovely in rice, just for adding a little bit of extra flavour to rice, and also in dressings. You can make lovely spicy dressings with a bit of cumin, and we used cumin earlier actually when we were filming the healthy baked beans. If you haven't seen that one, go and have a look, because that's a delicious way of eating beans. And we used cumin, we used cayenne pepper, and it just makes a really lovely sauce for healthy butter beans. The next one I want to go through is cayenne pepper, which I think is here. Yep. So slightly less red than paprika, and actually it's not too strong smelling, but that probably belies its, or rather doesn't give an indication of how strong it is. This one can be quite punchy, so go easy with the cayenne pepper. Again, it's great for meats, and as I said, we use it in the beans, stews, casseroles, and for making marinades for barbecuing meats. The next one is turmeric, which is this quite distinctive yellow spice. Turmeric stains really badly. If you've ever had a curry and spilt a bit of sauce on a white table or piece of clothing, you'll know that it's near impossible to get turmeric out. At least I think it's pretty impossible. If you have a tip, I'd love to know it. Turmeric again doesn't smell that distinctive, but it's a wonderful, wonderful spice, and it's being used more and more in cooking. There's lots of emerging health claims about how wonderful it is for certain things, but it generally is a fantastic spice for adding flavour. And the last spice I want to talk about is one of my favourites, which is nutmeg. Now, nutmeg is so strong, so pungent, but in such a lovely way, and it really reminds me, it's quite a wintry spice, so it reminds me of Christmas, and it kind of goes along with the whole mulled wine, cinnamon, or cloved oranges, those kind of smells. And that's where it's often used. Most people tend to use nutmeg once a year at Christmas in baking, but there is a little bit more to nutmeg. It's wonderful on porridge, sprinkled on porridge in the morning. It goes brilliantly, I think, with bananas on porridge. Nutmeg's fantastic in marinades in tiny little bits. It can really add depth of flavour. It's also wonderful for flavouring the syrup. If you're poaching pears, or even baked apples are fantastic with some raisins and cinnamon and nutmeg. Well, the cinnamon and nutmeg do tend to complement each other really well. So I hope that's been useful. I hope that's made you think about getting your spices out and being a bit more creative with them. The key is just have a go. If it doesn't work, it really doesn't matter. Remember what you loved, remember what you didn't love, and let us know how you get on.